I don't want no snob. A snob is a guy who can't recommend a watch for me, sitting reading Time and Tide, thinking he's a watch guide, wishing he wrote for Hodinkee. Saying that, the more I handle watches like this Matic... No. The more I handle watches like this Seamaster 300 Professional Homage, the more I feel like saying, ugh, why didn't you just save up for the real thing? Yep, this watch made me that guy. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for subscribing if you've already done so, and if you haven't, take it from Tony.
It's good to be in something from the ground floor.
So please do subscribe, give the video a like if you like it, and remember, it's not a watch community, it's a retirement community. As I'm starting to realise, I have a complicated relationship with homages. In my last video, I was really impressed with Seastern's Doxa Sub 600T homage, to the point that I'm considering picking up a version 2 of one of those, even though I have virtually no YouTube based incentive to do so. But this Matic, I'm going with that one by the way, Omega Seamaster Professional 300 homage, has me considering picking up another just so I can launch both to the bottom of an increasingly dry British reservoir and spare someone else from having to own it. First things first, the specs. This is a homage that doesn't do things quite as the original does. This takes 2mm off the actual 42mm Omega Seamaster Professional 300, coming in at 40mm, but has the same 20mm lug width. It's a nicely compact 47mm lug to lug, but a somewhat chunky 14.5mm. It doesn't feel too thick on the wrist, but I'd prefer a flat sapphire crystal as opposed to the slightly domed one, just to even give me the impression that I haven't got a Snorlax on my wrist. The bracelet doesn't taper, just as that on the original Omega doesn't, and it's actually a 5-link bracelet, which makes it a pain in the arse to size up, as the screws are actually tiny and can get lost really easily. Insert your own penis joke here. The bracelet doesn't rattle, thankfully, but the clasp doesn't exactly inspire confidence. It's got a diver's extension, which I think I'm going to actually just have to have a feature on from now on. Totally unnecessary diver's extension. Once you open it, you've got to carefully close it, making sure it's properly back in on both sides before the clasp will close again. Otherwise, it'll keep coming loose and you might lose the watch forever. And that wouldn't really be the worst thing to happen. No, the worst thing to happen would be this bezel. I know that I wear these minky smooth Michael Jackson gloves to handle most of the watches on these videos, but that's because I want to spare you the sight of my grisly old hands. Even without the gloves on though, I can assure you, honestly, this thing is very stiff. Again, penis joke. I did battle with it plenty, so please forgive my woeful attempts at the footage here. Naturally, it doesn't align, and is so gritty that I thought for a second that it was a mid-noughties superhero franchise reboot. Even when you have managed to start turning it, you'll never get it to line up to where you want it to. It sits just a bit to the right, annoyingly, which is a problem I have too, only I align slightly to the left, hence why I always get comments telling me to stop making political jokes. Well, you won. I hope you're happy. Enjoy the watch video. What a sad little life, Jane. Take the watch and get off my property. It's not all bad though. Let's discuss the dial. It does a good job of replicating the wave pattern of the Seamaster proper, and even goes as far as denoting its PT5000 movement a chronometer. Hacking and hand winding it does do, but keeping time within chronometer parameters it does not. It's not bad, mind, at +7 seconds a day. If it said +7 seconds a day on the dial, I'd admire the moxie. Luckily, there are some bright spots, quite literally. The polished handset and indices are executed and finished well, and this is as good a time as any to check out the two-tone lume. It's excellent, if a tad inconsistent on the minute hand, with the point of the hand being a bit better than the arms. It doesn't last forever, but it'll last longer than the nuclear codes did in Trump's possession. Oh, topical. So, the finishing is, acceptable. It's not pulling up trees, so to speak. The brushing and the transitions are fine, and they're nowhere near as coarse as that which you'll find on a Pagani design, for example. But then again, you are paying a little bit more for this. For the record, I've had a few Pagani designs myself, and, well, I've hated them after a couple of weeks of wearing them. Sorry to be that guy, and I respect the whole wearing whatever watch you like, but they're not for me. One was actually pretty good until it kept digging into my skin. Check out my video on that one here if you want. But obviously, okay, this Matic is a step above Pagani design in terms of finishing and tolerances, minus the bezel. But take this watch outside, and you'll have the same problem you would with a Pagani. No anti-reflective coating. Filming this has been a nightmare, and not just for my girlfriend. The constant sitting down, me sat there twisting my wrist, finding yet another backdrop for B-roll, ugh. But also, the dial just disappears underneath any bright light. I've had to film any usable footage in shade, or angle the watch completely away from the sun. The screw down crown has a bit of a knack to it in terms of threading it back in, but the winding action is perfectly okay. The colour matched date wheel and the 6 o'clock placement of that date wheel is also very welcome, but on the whole, the watch just feels like the money's been spent in the wrong places. I don't need the bracelet to have a complicated link arrangement. Give me solid links and I'll be happy. Also, helium escape valve? Seriously? Honestly, it's not even something that I'm that keen on the Omega SMP itself, so why include it here? And also, there's no micro adjustment on the clasp, but there is a diver's extension. Just, come on. And while the Lume ceramic bezel insert is impressive, I'd be more impressed by getting a really comfortable and well-sized bracelet more easily. When you see brands like Seamaster and San Martin producing watches with exceptional finishing and practical touches, like, for example, AR coating and usable bezels, but without the useless, almost sycophantic inclusions of divers extensions or helium escape valves for similar money, the 160 quid or so that you'll pay for this just feels silly. So do not buy this watch, just don't. Unless you absolutely crave the look of a Seamaster Professional 300, in which case I'd have a long hard think about other stuff you might be craving that you could shell out 160 quid for. Maybe an eighth of your new weekly energy bill. So that's it. I can't be much more unequivocal. I do not like this watch. But what's the worst thing you've ever spent over 100 quid on? Let me know in the comments, and again, please do subscribe if you haven't done already. Hit the bell to get notified when God, I'm actually saying the line. Yeah, okay, but it really does help out the channel, I swear. Thanks for watching. See you next time.